Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Tunswalo Masie. For those of you who are returning to my channel, you do know that most of my channels have been purely about motivation. But I've sat down and actually thought about this. How far does motivation actually take you? I felt that motivation is not a driving force, it's just something that sparks interest and inspires you within that moment, but it's not something you take with you and create or become with it. And today I want us to look into a new concept of why most of us are stuck in life and how certain barriers have been placed in our lives and how we can overcome them and just clear ourselves from them completely. I will be taking you through certain steps and certain guidelines of where certain beliefs and perceptions come from and how they are affecting us and how we then start to integrate certain things into our life in order for us to emerge and immerse into who we truly mean to be. Stay tuned and I will be giving you more just now. As a child, your concept of love is what you see between your parents. If your parents are constantly fighting, if your parents are never really bonding with each other, if your parents are always isolated or even abandoning themselves, or even you, that becomes the concept that you pick up and you take into your adulthood. And this is what I want us to explore. People tend to think of trauma as just being physical or sexual abuse. Or even life-threatening events. But trauma also comes in many different dynamics that people aren't really aware of, that are actually affecting them in their day-to-day lives. Trauma also comes in a form of a parent denying your reality. Trauma is when you're not being seen or even heard by your parents. Childhood trauma is being told directly or even indirectly that you can't or shouldn't express certain emotions. It also comes when you have a parent who overcompensates for what they felt missing in their childhood. And it affects us because having a parent who can't self-regulate their own emotions, we learn that from them. We've got what is called mirror neurons, where we pick up like mirrors how our parents were relating to each other and how they even related with us. And this is one of the topics that many people overlook, and many people are struggling to realize where certain habits and certain beliefs about how they feel about themselves, how they look, even concepts about money. Many people are stuck in life because there's certain programmings and there's certain beliefs and perceptions that have been programmed within us, and we are so conditioned in how we are that we aren't even aware that we have been and where it comes from. And I'm here to dive deep and just show you those certain elements and principles of how all of these have been integrated within our lives and how we can then heal ourselves and go to that place and release ourselves from all the baggage. I want to just introduce you guys to the types of parenting there is out there, and many of you, whether you like to believe it or not, will definitely fall within either of the categories, right? So please listen up and just try to see if this actually resembles how your childhood was and the type of dynamic that your parents had with you, whether you did have parents or not. Just listen out and just tell me how this fits into your day-to-day life and how this has actually been embedded and imprinted within you from childhood that you may not be aware of. So the first type of parenting I want to mention is what we call neglect, right? Neglect is when a parent suddenly dies, or a parent commits suicide, or you are put in an orphanage, right? Or even when you are living with either both parents or one parent, but somehow you are being neglected. You aren't really given the freedom to have an emotional relationship with your parents. You are either isolated, abandoned, or they would shut you out completely. And thing is, with neglect, kids tend to internalize this as it being their fault. Because kids are so obsessed with parental love, when love is not there and it's not available for them, they tend to look within themselves and blame themselves for the parent not being they blame themselves rather for the parent not being able to show love and appreciation or even affection towards them. And then the next type of parenting I'd like to bring to your attention is abuse. Abuse is when parents will constantly tell you that, you know, it's your fault that you've ruined my life. Ever since you've been born, nothing has been going well in my life. You know, they blame you for why a whole lot of things aren't going on in their lives. To some certain extent, they may be physical with you, whether they sexually molest you or they beat you up, but it's abusive. It's not a functional and harmonious relationship between the mother and daughter, or the parent and child, or even the caregiver and child. And then the next type of parenting style I want us to look into is the helicopter parents. The helicopter parents are the parents who are overprotective, they are overbearing, they are overwhelming. Those parents are the parents who are constantly on the radar. Those parents want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and with who. They basically control certain events in your life, and they also control how you react or respond or even become associated with that experience. So they basically control everything within you, making you lose a sense of independence, a sense of self, and even a sense of hope, because now we through expression we get to know who we truly are, and certain things integrate into our lives as a means of experimenting, as a means of trial and error, and we then take those things, and those things shape us into who we truly need to emerge into. So the helicopter parent really denies kids the ability to freely be who they need to be as a whole, intellectual, beautiful being, you understand? And then the next type of parenting is your overindulgent parent. Your overindulgent parent always have good intentions, you know. If you look at someone who comes from an overindulgent parent, you'd think that they're in such a perfect home, you know. They're spoiled, they are overly loved, they are given a lot of attention. But the thing is, most parents who are very overindulgent are usually trying to live through their kids. They feel like, oh my gosh, I did not go to the school, my kid needs to go to the school. Oh my gosh, I always wanted to be a dancer, my kid needs to dance. That also doesn't really leave room for the poor soul to really emerge into who they need to be, right? And now it becomes hard for you to have a sense of self, because now you feel like there isn't anything you can do on your own. Your parent will always make you feel like they need to do everything for you in order for you to achieve a certain goal, or in order for you to succeed. But in truth, it's actually their fear of failing and the failures that they've overcome, that they want to see the success through you. And they fear that if they let you do things on your own, you'll definitely not make it work. So now it's just a reflection of their fears and how they personally feel about themselves, that they overwhelm you with all these beliefs and perceptions. And then the last one I want to talk about is the fact that the overindulgent parent, there's something called the Peter syndrome, right? The Peter syndrome you find a lot with grown men. There are men who are still staying at home, who aren't really finding the sense of self within them that allows them to be who they are, because they've lived in a home that was extremely overindulgent. So that overindulgent treatment and behavior they got from their parents has literally made them feel like they can't make it on their own. So I'm sure you do know of people out there, especially men, who are still living with their parents, and if they do get into relationships, they expect women to take care of them. And if they do eventually even have kids with those women, they usually can't support the kids. You'd find the mom actually supporting the kids, or just him being able completely. So these are the types of parenting styles that in a way influence our beliefs and shape how we see and feel about ourselves. And because they are unresolved, and when we did experience them as kids, we could not really process them in a manner that we are able to process things as adults. And this is why many toxic relationships, compulsive eating, compulsive spending, alcohol and drug abuse come in. And I just want to elaborate more on how all those habits and behavioral disorders come into play through these specific dynamics of the mother-child or parent-child dynamic. The people who usually grew up in homes where parents were abusive tend to look for abusive partners as well. And they do this merely to prove to themselves that an abusive person can love them. And when they prove to themselves that an abusive person can love them, it makes them change their perception about their parents, thinking that their parents did not know that she was enough. So they go in pursuit just to validate that thing, to make them believe that the parents did not know that he or she was enough. And that's why they start being addicted to these toxic and abusive relationships. It's merely just to prove to themselves that their parents were actually not aware of the fact that they are enough. As well as people who find themselves in codependent relationships. Those people are people who are looking for external things, who, if you've basically never had parental love, you go in pursuit of parental love from others, and you start actually becoming such a dramatic person. You start becoming a person who starts to compromise the next person because you are so codependent and you need this person to show you love, to affirm that they love you. You constantly check up on them, you want to know where they are. So you basically have a codependent relationship where you can't necessarily be yourself on your own without actually feeling as though you are loved, or you are in a relationship, or you are even validated. As well as when you can't necessarily express your emotions properly. That actually comes from the fact that whenever you spoke your truth as a child, you were either punished, or you're either, love was taken away from you. There was just something there that your parents made you suffer. So a lot of you also struggle to speak out in your relationships, merely because that was a programming that happened within your childhood. You feel like when you stand up to your partner, when you even stand up to your friends, they'll either stop loving you, or they will punish you, or even just withhold love. And most of us function with love. So a lot of that comes from the fear that was instilled in us as children. You knew that talking up or standing up for yourself towards your parents, or even picking something that you truly wanted, meant compromising the relationship. We were always rewarded growing up as kids when we did what our parents wanted, and we were always punished when we spoke our truth, or even went for anything that made sense to us at that time. So that also shows up in relationships now. If you are struggling with a codependent relationship, or even a relationship where you can't necessarily voice out your truth, that also means that your throat chakra is blocked. And another thing that I want to introduce to you guys is chakras. And I will be taking you through each and every chakra, just explaining how chakras work and how they are connected to our organs and our day-to-day lives. But that'll be for another video, where I help you open up those chakras and guide you with certain meditations that will help you just unblock and start being able to start speaking your truth, and understanding that all of this is actually not who you truly are. It's just programming and conditions that you took as a child. Not being seen and not being known, and not even knowing where to turn to feel safe, is extremely devastating at any age, right? But it is particularly destructive for young children who are still trying to find their place in the world. So you can imagine how most of what we're suffering right now is purely conditioning and programming. And I want to help you through this journey in understanding exactly how the relationships that your parent had actually shaped precisely why your certain beliefs and even perceptions, even why you find yourself in the relationships you do, in the jobs you find yourself. And this is why you tend to find yourself in jobs that aren't satisfying you, with friendships that aren't really working out, and yet you're holding on. It's because of this parenting and the conditioning and programming that has happened to you at an early age. And because now you're operating on survival mode, this is the norm. This is what is okay with you, for you, because this is what you've seen, you've experienced, and yet you've accepted. But you are able to actually start rewiring yourself and start to make new changes in order for you to start the healing process. And I will be taking you through the healing process with affirmations, with meditation, and just taking you through your chakras and how they work, and meditations that will open up your chakras. And yeah, this, I hope, has been an eye-opener to many of you. If you do have questions about your parent-child dynamic that you feel I did not cover or really dissect, feel free to comment, or even follow me on my Instagram. You can DM me, and I will give you all the info and all the details you feel you need. And yeah, my next video will specifically get deep into it, and also just guide you exactly step by step on how to actually eliminate all the fear, the doubt, the anxiety, and the compulsive behaviors. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you soon.